Okay, so we're again continuing on this page that we've been working on, our index.html page. And so now I'm going to add an image. So the image tag is what we call a self-closing tag. So I open that with img, and then I have to tell it where this image is. So I'm going to do it with the source, src, and this is very similar to the link where we put the href and we put it in quotation marks. So in this case, I have an image in my folder. So when I go into the Finder in my folder, you can see I have cat.jpg in there. So there's an example image that you could have pulled in, but you can use whatever photo you want. But the easiest way to do it is to make sure it is in the folder you're working from, so then it's all in the same place. You can also break it into, well, we'll do that next. So here we're going to say our source is cat.jpg. So again, you want to make sure that your file name is the exact same for both. So you always want to save stuff as all lowercase, no spaces. It will mess things up if you have spaces in there. So you want to make sure that's all exactly as it is the photo name. So match those exactly, keep that consistent. The other thing you want to include when you are working in HTML is with an image, you want to include alt text. So this is for if a photo doesn't load or if someone's using a screen reader, it tells them what the image is. So a cat has a lime on his head is my alt text. So I mentioned this is a self-closing tag, so I just do the slash and the caret there at the end, and that closes it. So we're going to switch over and see what this looks like on my website. And there it is, the cat with the lime on his head. So that is the very basic setup for an image. A thing to know is that the image tag is an inline element, which it means that if there was more text, it would just kind of float within the text. So it does not have its own, it's not a block element. It doesn't create a return. So if you find that it's butting up against your text, you can wrap it in a p tag, for example, as a way to give it its own space. We'll learn more about spacing photos when we work in CSS, but this is one way to do it kind of just off the cuff. Another thing that can happen is your photo could be really huge depending on what you're using. So you can set a specific width. So if your photo was showing up really big, you might just come in here and say 300 pixels for a width. Make sure, again, this is an attribute with a value. So you want the attribute, equal sign, and then the value within quote marks. So if I save that, I shrunk my photo down a little bit. So if your photo was huge, taking over your whole screen, you want to just resize that using the width attribute. The other thing, so I mentioned that another way to do this, especially if you're working in a site that has a lot of photos, is to actually create a folder for images. So I'm going to say images, and I'm just going to drop my cat photo right into that folder. And so if I go and I refresh now, it's broken, doesn't work. You actually see my alt text, that's why that's important too. But so I changed where it was. So I put it in this images folder. So I have to tell the browser to look into the images folder. So I'm just gonna, the way I do that is under my source is go images and then slash cat.jpg, the same file name, everything's the same. And that should restore my photo just fine. So if you're working with a lot of photos, it makes sense a lot to use that folder for images. Just make sure you're telling the browser to look in a particular folder. So another thing you can do with images is actually link the image itself. And so we just put an anchor tag around that. And because this is part of the assignment, I'm going to show you this. So in this case, your assignment is going to be to put a photo of yourself and link to your email. So a link to an email is going to look a little different than a typical website link, but here is what that looks like. So I am using this mail to : and then my email address directly in there within the quotes, and then I have to make sure I go ahead and close that anchor tag down here, and I missed my caret, there it is. So now when I go and refresh, can't tell a difference, but when I click on it, it is going to take me to Gmail, and it's going to start up an email. So that's how you link to an email address. So let's look at that code one more time. I've just got an anchor tag. My href is to mail to no space, : no space, stevensec@missouri.edu. So you'll be doing that for your first HTML assignment. So this basically covers all of the things that you have, and I get rid of this comma, that are required for this first HTML assignment. The next video will show you validation, so you can see how to make sure your site validates.